Hello, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to a special edition of Overtime. You know, the show is your one-stop shop for all things NBA, all things basketball on the African continent and also globally. My name is Deji Omoto, and we have a very special guest in the studio today. She represents the NBA and, of course, maybe by extension, I can say the BAL. Kornelia Semmelink. Kornelia is the head of media partnerships, global media distribution for Africa for the NBA. Kornelia, great pleasure to have you come join us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. It's great to be here in Lagos, and I'm really excited to be discussing NBA and BAL.
All right, so let's start with the BAL. It's grown in leaps and bounds in 4 short years. It's become like a global sporting event. Can you take us through the process? What was the back end process? How did we get where we are at the moment? Because already, I think you guys probably have surpassed your expectations. I'm not sure you have, but I'm assuming that it's done well for you guys as well.
Absolutely. We're really excited about the Basketball Africa League. It's been a long project that I think has been in people's hearts and minds for decades. In 2003, when the NBA did their first Basketball Without Borders and came to Talent Scout, there were many people who came to identify what the potential could be on the continent in terms of building credible opportunities for young people to play both here as well as in the US. We opened the office in 2010 in South Africa, and that saw the start of the commercial arm of our league. And in 2018, our commissioner announced in August 2018 that we would do a league in Africa. And that was really a culmination of, as I said, you know, spoken a word and conversations between a lot of people here and in the US. And then visualizing and eventually being able to implement what everybody was really hoping for and take advantage of the incredible talent there is in the continent and the energy that's here when we started the league in 2021.
All right, so this year, there was an edition of a conference. You had started with the Nile and Kalahari, now you had this Sahara conference. Did you feel it was the right time to expand the frontiers of the BAL?
Absolutely. There was a lot of interest from many countries to have the BAL hosted in their cities. I think South Africa is an incredible entertainment destination and sports destination. We were excited to be able to expand to bring a new format as well this year to our fans and to start that in South Africa. We had an incredible outcome and reception in South Africa, and we're excited to see how we can do that in future years. It's extremely important to make sure that we create a closer proximity to what our product is.
All right. You've had the expansion, and I'm sure you are going to be victims of your own successes because other areas will be looking for an expansion. I've heard people say, hey, they should have at least 6 regions in Africa and all that. Are there immediate plans for another expansion next year, or we're still going to keep it at these 3 conferences for now?
So there are a lot of discussions about expansion. You know, the dream would be to have a true home and away format. But to take these teams around the continent, around 54 countries, and not necessarily obviously around 54 countries is an incredible feat economically and logistically, and I think quite challenging. So the league is certainly looking to see where we can expand to and where there are venues that are ready to host the Basketball Africa League and the product that we're trying to build on. I'm not sure we're going to be able to expand next year already. I think there are hopes that we'll probably try to retain the current format for at least another year. But certainly there are a lot of expansion talks on the horizon.
I'm sure. So let me address the elephant in the room, Nigeria. Nigeria is a huge basketball country. I know that football is the number 1 sport in most parts of Africa, but basketball, I think, for me, comes a close second. Nigeria, I'm sure, has a special place in your heart, I'm assuming. BAL now. So any hopes for the future that Nigeria might be one of those outlets where you will play?
I would say it's more than hopes and dreams on our part. We are very much invested in working with Nigeria to ensure that we are going to be able to host in Nigeria very, very soon. It has to happen within the next 3 to 5 years that we'll be able to come to this country. And one of the first steps was to open up an office in Nigeria that is headed up by Bemishola Abudu, who's an incredible tour de force who has really been driving behind the scenes with the various stakeholders to make this a reality. So we're confident it's going to happen very soon.
Oh, that's good to hear. I'm sure a lot of Nigerians would like to hear that. Given the popularity of other sports on the continent, particularly football, what are the marketing strategies you're putting in place to ensure that you continue to at least favorably compete in terms of sponsorship markets and all of that with, quote unquote, the king of football, the king of sports, football? But like I said, I feel basketball comes a close second. But what are your strategies knowing that football is tops, whether we like it or not?
So look, one cannot deny the dominance in football, but certainly our research shows us that there's a strong love and affinity for basketball, and people fundamentally understand our brand, they understand our teams and our players, and they want to see more. So our team is doing a lot of work, especially in the digital space where Africa is certainly leading, making sure that we're reaching out to people on the platforms that they want to see us on. This includes our media distribution strategy, and certainly being part of the Afrosports family is an incredible part of this, because we really need to make sure that from a marketing perspective, we're on the right media, we're reaching out to the right networks, but also from a social perspective, given new media, we're also able to meet people where they are. We're also looking into doing a lot of events and grassroots activities, which we have been doing for the last 20 years. And so we have the Junior NBA as part of this opportunity, and we have various events that are happening around the continent to help us drive our brand and marketing agenda.
In terms of your audience growth, from a fan perspective, number of fans you were able to get into the venues, and the number of media partnerships you've had, how many territories that your games are being watched on. Can you tell us about that? How have you been able to grow organically? I was at Kigali last year, and some of my friends came from Nigeria and couldn't get match tickets on the final day. So which shows that fans are coming through the turnstiles. Have you had an increase in that? And second part of the question, from your media perspectives, how many territories are we able to watch the BAL games?
Absolutely. So I think this was really an expansion for us, expansion year for us in many ways. We had about 40,000 people attend BAL games in 2023. In 2024, we found that it was about 100,000 who went through our various venues. So that was an incredible increase in the number of people who are able to attend BAL games where the venues are happening. From a media standpoint, we were available in 214 countries around the world in 14 languages, which was really important to us. We reached out to our large network of broadcasters who we already work with in some of our other product areas, and they were really excited to be part of what we were doing. And we were excited especially to have Afrosports be part of that broadcast family and to make sure that we're available to fans in Africa, especially for the participating countries. That was a really big focus for us. So we are having some wins in that respect, and we are growing our ability to reach fans where they are.
Okay, on the question of reaching fans, free-to-air, we are a free-to-air channel. How important is free-to-air partnerships to the growth of the BAL?
This is incredibly important and has been part of our growth strategy in the initial years. 70% of Africans are accessing all content on free-to-air television. It's the most cost-effective way to access entertainment and sports. And so it's extremely important for us to make sure that we're available on these platforms and we're accessible on these platforms.
Let's go to the NBA now. In the last 6 years, NBA MVPs have been won by non-American players, particularly African, quote-unquote, players. We've had Joel Embiid, we had Giannis. How important is that to the growth of the BL in terms of being inspirational and aspirational to show that African players can compete at the very top?
So the Basketball Africa League is the only league that the NBA owns that is outside of the US. I think that really demonstrates how firm and strong the league believes that this is a huge growth area for the business and the continent. Our international business is growing tremendously. It's extremely important to the league. And the BAL is an important part of the NBA story. And we really are hoping to see young people being able to play at home in front of their own fans and being able to grow their professional careers at home. And the NBA being the best basketball league in the world, hopefully some of those players will be able to cross the Atlantic and be able to play in the US and be part of that story too.
I know there have been deliberate, intentional strategies about the competitiveness of the BAL. And what I like about it, we've had 4 competitions now. No team has won twice. We've had 4 different winners. I think that shows the level of competitiveness of the BAL. How do you, and I know how you can get players. You've given the strict set of rules, how you can acquire players and all that. That's to balance out the level of competition so that one team does not have a lopsided advantage. How do you intend to maintain that? Because I think the competitiveness and the fact that teams from various countries are winning it makes it appealing for everybody on the continent.
I think that is testament to the relationship that we have with FIBA, who are our partner in the BAL. Game integrity is extremely important to the league, and making sure that we have fair competition is extremely important. I think the teams themselves are doing a wonderful job of investing in what they're doing. We are trying our level best to make sure we support this with FIBA, be able to bring combines before the BAL starts so that these teams can come to one venue to be able to attract and find the talent that they need to be competitive. But I also would like to think that the teams themselves are really very invested in making sure that they do their best. And that they can climb the ladder at the BAL. So I'm really enthusiastic by what we've seen, especially in season 4.
From a marketing perspective, you have these African players in the NBA. I mentioned Joel Embiid, I mentioned Giannis. Pascal Siakam is another one you can mention. Is there a plan afoot to make these guys, I don't know, maybe I'll use the word ambassadors of the BAL? Maybe get them, because I feel it will make a huge impact if you can get them to come, I know, allowing for their playing schedule as well, to be some sort of mentors to BAL players. Are there any plans along those lines to increase their visibility and their association with the BAL, these African players?
I know that a lot of our African players in the NBA are super excited about the Basketball Africa League, and they're really excited about the level of competition that they're seeing. We have former NBA players who are sitting courtside every single year. In Mahimni from Benin, Festus Ezeli from Nigeria were at the BAL this year. Olumide Adejuwas. So there is a huge and massive interest for our African players to support what we're doing. We're already seeing that from the legends, and hopefully if the schedule does allow and we do overlap with the NBA schedule, we will start to see a closer connection with NBA players, not just of African descent, but also other NBA players who are interested in what's happening with the league.
All right, I'm speaking with Kornelia, who is in charge of NBA media partnerships across Africa. We're going to take a break now. When we come back, I'm going to ask her a question about gender equality and what the BAL will do about that. Stay with us.
All your people downstairs, they waiting. Feel great. You ready? Are you ready?
Hello? I'm here for the finals.
It's the finals.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the NBA Finals. Take it away, champ.
Welcome. What should I say? Welcome back. Tonight, we're celebrating the moment that we worked for all year. At the center of it are 2 exceptional teams. Who's gonna show up? And yet, you're all a part of it. Here's to those who make this event unmissable.
My man, same corner every year, like we never left.
Tonight, we honor basketball's kings and queens.
Champs only.
To legacies that are on the line.
I still got it.
And to the rest of us waiting on the edge of our seats.
Here we go.
To see what a trophy will end up next. To the season that was. And to the champions to be. Here's the going out with the best of 7. Bang! Come on, Mike.
Sorry, Dwayne. Back to you.
Bang! To the NBA Finals.
To the finals. To the finals.
To the finals!
Could everyone be quiet for 2 hours?
Can you introduce me to Larry Bird?
This is gonna be good.
Bang.
Welcome back to this very special edition of Overtime for all things basketball. I'm talking with Kornelia Semmelink, who is in charge of NBA media partnerships across Africa. Kornelia, you played basketball. Tell us about that.
Yes, I was really fortunate to play for the South African national team.
Fortunate or talented enough to play?
I feel like I was talented, you're right. In 2003, we went to South Korea for the World Student Games, and that was an incredible experience. I played for just over 10 years and then decided to make a transition to coaching. And later on, I had the great opportunity to work as part of the business.
All right, you played in South Africa. Before I get to the gender question, NBA has held games in Mexico, in France, and all of that. Are there any plans? I know there used to be some kind of game in South Africa. Can't remember what that was. Yes. But are there plans to bring some of those games to Africa?
So we've hosted 3 exhibition games in Johannesburg and Pretoria, 2015, 2017, and 2018. We are working very hard as a region to make sure we bring those games back now, post-COVID, essentially. There is interest from the league to see those games happen here, and I think there's a lot of cities who are extremely interested in hosting those games.
I'm sure there won't be any shortage of cities wanting to host, but I don't think Johannesburg will want to let go because of course, the impact it has. So let me go to the question. BL doing a whole lot of things, but my fear is that gender activists might come at you and say, you're doing all these things for these guys who are probably already established. What are you doing for the female basketballers on the continent? Are there plans to have a BAL style competition for the women's teams? Because most of these teams you're dealing with, most of them have women's teams as well. And there are many women's teams across Africa. There is a women's league in Nigeria, actually. So what are your plans for women's basketball?
Yeah, this is a really important point, and I think is close to my heart and many people at the NBA, especially our CEO, Claire Akamanzi. She's the first female CEO that we've had in the region. And Amadou Galafal, who's the president of Basketball Africa League. They're certainly thinking about the future and how they can be able to create a women's league in Africa. The BAL is doing quite a lot of activities to make sure that they're incorporating the female narrative into other parts of the game. There are a lot of women working behind the scenes within the business. There are women who are on the court in terms of seeing some great coaches that we've seen in the past season, both as head coaches, but assistant coaches, as well as Mills. That was an incredible story. And as well as the referees. So we need to do a little bit more to make sure that we are going to be able to bring these athletes onto the court and have a fully fledged league going. And that's really part of our strategic process at the moment, trying to understand when we can make that happen.
Not wanting to put you on the spot, but could you hazard a guess as to how many years down the line that might come into fruition so that when the questions come, we may be able to answer?
Sure. I would really be speculating if I tried to answer that. I think that's incredibly difficult, but there was a exhibition game that was hosted in Kigali a couple of weeks ago where we had some young women playing. So I'm hoping it's not too far into the future.
All right, feedback. How do you incorporate feedback from players, coaches, the teams into your plans for the future? Like getting an extra conference this year, was that a result of feedback, or was that just a corporate decision to advance the league? How do you manage feedback?
So the decision to expand to South Africa followed on the general aspiration that the league has to be seen in more countries and identifying which countries could be ready for us and business ready, but also fan ready in that respect. From a feedback perspective, the league is doing a lot of work on the ground. This year, we did surveys at the stadium, and with 100,000 people passing through our arenas, I hope we've been able to capture some great fan data about what people are wanting to see us do in the future. We're also working very closely with the teams to make sure that we're incorporating their feedback into how we're going to do things going forward. And as a league, we do a lot to invest in research and understanding what people want to see us do in Africa.
There's some really established leagues on the African continent, Angola, Egypt, to mention a few, that have really thriving local leagues. In your plans, did you incorporate those experiences, or did you get, did you headhunt people in those established leagues to grow your own plans and your own opportunities?
FIBA is a very important part of our planning process. They work very closely with the federations in every single country. We incorporate a lot of people through the FIBA relationship as being part of the league as well, and making sure that they're part of the operational side of the league. So anytime we go to any country, we have to work with the locals and make sure that we are in tune with what needs to happen on the ground. A few of our executives are coming from these communities, and so definitely the league is investing in getting talent from these spaces.
In what areas would you say you've been hugely successful as a franchise, and what areas would you feel we still need to improve?
So I think a lot of our focus in the initial decade of having a business here was really focused on building stakeholder relationships and making sure that we're able to work with FIBA to expand what was happening on the ground from a grassroots perspective. And I think that really reflected a lot of the success that we had in the initial years in building the junior NBA program and our Basketball Without Borders program, and starting to see the talent translate from the US standpoint. I think we need to do a lot more work to understand how fans want to experience the NBA from an entertainment standpoint. And we're starting to do those kind of activities, like hosting viewing events, which are now going to be being opened up to the public as well. So, we need to do a lot in that space. We need to do a lot more in the media space to make games more accessible and to make our programming more accessible.
From a personal perspective, what's giving you most joy in your relationship with the BAL and NBA Africa?
As somebody who grew up in basketball, it's a dream come true to be able to be part of a professional basketball experience on the continent. And that really gives me a lot of energy to see a lot of people I grew up playing with, playing against in other countries, being able to be part of something that we all hoped would happen. We used to joke in the beginning about doing a 3-on-3 from Cape to Cairo. This is much more than a 3-on-3. And so that gives me much bigger. And also to see young people being part of the junior NBA activities. Anytime, to see a young person pick up a basketball and experience that and enjoy experience I had when I was a young person is fantastic.
Are you a bit surprised at the acceptance level that BAL has gotten across the continent? Or is that a pleasant surprise, or did you expect that?
Certainly, I'm not surprised by the reception. I think people are hungry for alternative experiences. Football is an incredible game, but Africans can be about so much more. And I think people are looking for more experiences, more sports and entertainment experiences. So we weren't surprised.
Okay, to the NBA now, is there a deliberate and intentional plan to see that in the near future, some of these guys, those players you're developing, make it to the NBA? Would that be something that would validate completely all the efforts that has been put into the BAL?
So I think there are two answers to that. In the first place, we are already seeing players and coaches be part of the NBA ecosystem from the BAL. We've had a couple of players and coaches attend our NBA Summer League, which happens in July. and be part of that process, and occasionally also be part of the combine process as well, and the initial preseason camps. So we are certainly seeing that happen, and we're starting to see indications that the teams themselves are sending more scouts to see what's happening on the ground, and there's a lot of viewership stateside. In the other respect, we want to build a world-class product that is something that viewers globally want to view and be excited about. You know, maybe we're going to compete internally.
Yeah. I'm enjoying this interview so much. We could go on and on and on, but let's take a break. We'll be back with Kornelia in just a minute.
Get ready to hit the court with Overtime. Join us as we bring you the latest highlights and analysis around the NBA. From buzzer-beating shots to jaw-dropping dunks, Overtime has it all. With timely insights from the best experts, you get an inside look at the game like never before. We'll break down the biggest matchups, dissect the most talked about plays, and bring you up close and personal with your favorite players. Whether you're a die-hard fan or just looking to get into the action, Afrosport's Overtime has something for everyone. So don't miss out. Tune in and join the excitement today.
Welcome back as we hit the buzzer point on this special edition of Overtime, and with Kornelia Semmelink in charge of NBA media partnerships across Africa. It's been great talking to you. It's been great having you on the show. Final question to you, futuristic question. As a franchise, BAL, where would you like to see the BAL and, in fact, the development of African basketball in the next 5 years in the short term, 10 years in the long term? What KPIs as a franchise, what are you trying to achieve with basketball on the African continent over the next decade?
Thank you. I appreciate that question. Certainly, we would like to be part of growing a very vibrant sports industry on the continent. We would love to see the Basketball Africa League be the most exciting premium sports competition in Africa. And we really mean that. And we're willing to invest in being able to realize what that means. We think that there's a strong potential for basketball in Africa to grow because it has an exciting and a very digital first fan base, which is really important. So being able to prove that we can build a vibrant business for ourselves and our stakeholders is incredibly important. Being able to do home and away games and expand this league to a lot more teams, a lot more games, a lot more venues, and to really make sure that this becomes an important part of the sports fixture in Africa, but globally as well.
Well, I have to commend you guys and say you're almost halfway there. In 4 years, you've done incredible stuff for basketball on the continent, and I continue to wish you well. You have a fantastic team. I spoke to Ruben Bumje. The passion, I've spoken to you. The passion alone is enough to drive this forward. And I'm sure basketball on the African continent is in a good place. At Afrosport, we hope we'll continue to partner with you for a long time to come, to continue to grow the sport on the continent. Let me thank you so very much for your time here. Kornelia, it's been great having you on Overtime. And I'm sure this is probably going to be our best edition of Overtime. So on that note, I'd like to thank you for joining us on this special edition of Overtime. My name is Jake Jomonton. Many thanks for Kornelia Semmelink for joining us on this special edition. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.